So, let's talk about Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. Well, this may seem like an interesting animated film, now is it? First started in 2017, the anime film, well, it was not meant to be called Paws of Fury, was meant to be called as Brazen Samurai, which is basically like an animated film version of Brazen Saddles, but this time it's with cartoon animals, and yeah, it's basically about it. And it also has a poster of a sumo cat's butt with Hello Kitty on it. But this film was in production hell. Well, it might have gotten a release date, but it never seen the light of day to be released in theaters, which is also back then people would just think it would be a cancelled anime film. But not until 2020 came up when the studio Paramount actually announced that they were actually going back to make Blazing Samurai, but switched the name with Paws of Fury. And now it's released in 2022, and I am quite interested. So now that we're looking into one of Paramount's biggest, one of their anime films that nearly got cancelled, would this film be blazing as in a good way, or was this film better off cancelled in the first place? Let's see for ourselves. As I expected, yeah, this was a terrible film. But I'll just move on with the stuff that I did actually quite admire from this film. There were some decent jokes in the comedy, like with some of the slapstick humor, even though there are others out there that are quite terrible, which I'll get to later. And it does bring out that feeling that this is a Mel Brooks comedy, just like in Blazing Saddles that has the best comedy in a film since then. Another thing that I did like about the film is that some of the elements in the animation are quite good, to be honest. The character designs are going into more rounded and that Looney Tunes nostalgia kind of style on the character designs, which does fit well for the slapstick humor and other stuff like that. And even for the character animation, I can see there are some bit of talent there. And some of the backgrounds, while not many are quite good, there were some that did stand out between the most just to bring out that feeling. But the best part about the animation is the third act, which brings out most of the action and the humor, which actually does make the animation stand out as it is the better thing about this movie. I did like Sumo, who had a lot of funny scenes, and is actually is the one who may seem threatening, but he has more of a kinder side to him. And I will give that the voice actors did a pretty good job on the acting role of the characters, which does give the characters a bit of charm, not fully, but a bit, so in that way the actors can actually help the film out itself. Okay, enough of the decent stuff about this film. Here are the other stuff that makes this film inferior, and that is the story. I can see why in the film it has a bit of racism of cats hating on dogs for obvious reasons. It gives it that Zootopia feeling if it can bring out a message, but the most part it just feels bland, and the reason why it does is because is try to bring out that be a hero message, which makes this movie quite generic and very predictable. And I did say that some of the humor was decent, but then there are others that did fall flat, like with gas humor, pop culture references, those kind of stuff you expect from a kiddies film, of course. I mean, this film's not kiddie-ish, of course, because what else you expect? And the animation does have a bit of problems. And the one thing I forgot to say about this film is some of the 2D scenes that have a more stylized look to them, and like these other films like Spy-Verse and many other stuff there. That actually does work well. But for the other part, the character animation in this film doesn't add much to the comedy. And some of the backgrounds don't add much to look at. We've always seen these kind of stuff before, and that's it. While I did say the third act was nice to watch, it doesn't help because you had to wait throughout the entire movie in order to get to the third act to get some bit of entertainment, which it mostly feels disappointing, which it makes it feel like it's taken forever to get to the good part. And even though this animation does seem cheap, and it does show how the rendering and the box office budget was, for like the budget of this film was quite cheap. However, blame the technology instead of the talent. That's why this film looks like it came out of a low-budget animated studio. Even if the actors do a good job, the characters are very terrible. Oh, it's and a good example of that is Hank. Well, he's just a generic hero who actually becomes more excruciating than you think. He's always egotistical of being a hero, especially at the second act where he's just all full of himself. Well, sometimes at the first act, but you get what I mean. Jimbo is just a generic teacher, and then there's Ikachu, I think, yeah, Ikachu. Oh, which the actor Ricky Gervais sounded like he barely even wanted to be there. Where he's just bored. Sounded like, can I go home now? I'm just sick of tired of doing this humor already. And but then there's Emiko, who is obviously one of the film's most marketable characters out there, who's only using her just for money, just selling the cuteness. Yes, which can be annoying since most anime films, well, some of them, are just doing that nowadays. And that's another big problem besides the story about this film, is that the characters don't offer much to begin with. Paws the Fury: The Legend of Hank is an anime film that was stuck in production hell, and you might wish that it was stuck in production hell. There's very much of a story, and whatever story there is purely weak. The animation is just average at best, that doesn't give out much to make this film grand, and the characters are one-dimensional or even unlikable, to be honest. Sure, the actors did well, but it's not enough to make these characters stand out. There's not much funny comedy, and there's not much action scenes that make this film engaging to watch. But I would just ask, what's the point of watching this when you can watch Blazing Saddles instead? Sure, it's a bit outdated by today's standards, but it's a better version of this. But as for the kids, I would say just watch Kung Fu Panda. See, because it's more like a much better martial art anime film than whenever you had to deal with Paws of Fury. On the other hand, yeah. So, and I think it's for the best that this film would have been better off never to be released, and that's why I'm giving this 0 bad. After all these years, this movie would have been better off cancelled.
Oh, doggone it. Still, at least I don't have to do the sequel.